Welcome to Mocha Wave Talks. Here at Mocha Wave Publishing, we believe that everyone who reads has their own magic. And I'm really excited to introduce all of you to Julie Burris, who is an upcoming author and has really interested me in what she's discovered about developing her characters. So, hi, Julie.
Hi, how's it going?
It's doing pretty good. I think one of the things that's interesting to me about Julie is that she lives in Australia. So when it's nice and cold and getting a little more crisp here in the United States, it's starting to become warmer there, right? So are you still in summer right now?
Yeah, it's probably going to be 83 today, Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Yep.
So when we're trying to talk about fall and Halloween and all that cozy by the fire stuff, she's like, nope, not yet.
I still want those things. I grew up in Minnesota. So
how did you decide to be a writer?
I've always been encouraged to write because I talk a lot. And my teachers told me in school, it would be great if you wrote some of those stories down that you tell us all the time. When I was really little, I was always telling people stories. So then I started writing them down and they're like, wow, you are so imaginative. And as I got older, I started just channeling my emotions into it as well. So it's a really good load off,
She's such a creative and insightful person. Julie has a lot of insight into like people and the way they think and the way they act, so that she's always willing to, like, if you're a writer and you want to get some insight into something, like, okay, what would a character do? She's always good at kind of giving you that little push into the right direction. So can you tell us what are some of the secrets you have? Like, what are some ways that you have developed characters, or you've thought about how to understand your characters better?
Well, I am a great observer of what people do. And I worked as a waitress for a while. So I watched what people do, how they behave, how they react to different things. And so through my years, I have collected a vast storage of how people do things and kind of caricatures of people. So it's just like you say, this is a category of person that does this sort of thing, and this is like astrology or MBTI or any of the other personality typing systems. I got really into astrology as a teenager, so I was like, okay, so even if it doesn't tell me my future, it will say things about personality types, and even if it's not real, it can tell you what a personality could be like, technically, like, and logically what they would do in a situation. Say they're shy, what are they going to do in a crowd? Well, I mean, they might hide, they might act nervous, they might they might do any old thing, but they might try to get out as soon as possible.
Wow.
Or a loud person to make friends with the introverts.
No, that's really interesting. I know that I've enjoyed our chats where we've talked about our characters, and I'm like, oh, what would this character do in this situation? And she always has some really good insight, like, oh, well, you got to remember everything that character has been through and what, some of the things they recently experienced. And
I mean, the past affects people quite a lot. So we like to say we forgot it, but it's always there. No matter how long you've been through something years ago, you will always be affected by something long ago. So even characters will be that way.
That's good to keep in mind. I think, we were so kind of I think our society today is so geared toward the moment. Like, we're in the moment and you just keep going. You don't stop but we got to kind of, also it's good to stop and self-reflect, like think about ourselves and think about what motivates us and why we are the way we are, and that will help us understand our characters better. Do you think?
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of what I do as well. How would I react in that situation if I were that sort of person?
So you kind of put yourself into the shoes of your character. I really have been impressed with your ability to get well-rounded characters and to understand people that other people may not, always understand. like characters that are
Well,
maybe misfits in society, and they feel, misunderstood, right? And
yeah,
you're trying to get their, personality across in a way that other people can see their point of view.
that's right. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
It's of myself I put into my book because I was that misunderstood person growing up. And it would be nice for people to read and feel what the writer is writing as something that they can relate to.
Yes. Well, I think I find that a lot is that we think we're the outcast and the odd person, and then all of a sudden we find out that there's a lot of other people out there that feel just like that, and they're looking for
Yeah.
something like that.
I hope I'll meet some people through this book that can relate to that. I'll be like, these are my people.
Yes, I'm sure you will. So do you want to tell us, you've been kind of hinting a little bit at the book. You want to tell us a little bit about your book, just as much as you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, the current title is The Horns of the Dilemma. And it's based on some character that is one of the things that brought Kathy and me together. We were inspired by an actor from old movies, Martin Kozlek.
And a lot of people may not know of Martin Koslick because I mean,
Yeah,
he's kind of obscure to as many people, because even though, old movies are already kind of obscure, but then here's an obscure character in old movies. But he's a really interesting character.
he
Actor.
is, and he's a really good actor. And then if you start paying attention to these side actors, you start to realize they're actually sometimes better actors than the main characters because you don't notice them. Or you do notice them because Martin, he always pops out, and even when he's a side character, he ends up being noticeable.
Right. Yeah. What would you say is his most well-known? Like if someone was going to look up Martin Koslick, what would they look up? What movie would you there?
Probably the Flesh Eaters is the one that he's most known for because it's more modern. Plus, it's a horror movie, and people like the goriness of it and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
And he's very evil in this movie. It's quite fun to watch because it's very tongue in cheek. I think it's hilarious, gross, but hilarious.
Yeah, it's just like one of those things you take it with a grain of salt, but you also kind of you're like, oh, I can't believe.
I can't look away, but I must. But my favorite of his is probably House of Horrors.
Yes, and I think, people that watch like Universal horror films, and I think there are a lot of people that still do, they would be more familiar with the House of Horrors, I think.
Yes, this is kind of what inspired me for my current book. It's about an artist who he is an American guy, and he had a very unpleasant childhood where he was a scapegoat. His family basically ostracized him and treated him like he was not as good as they were. And so he grew up having a very doubtful self-image, and he doesn't feel comfortable standing up for himself. So his best friend Brett, decides to help him to come up with a persona. They come up with a persona that he changes his name from an American name to his mother's nationality, which is Russian and German. And he comes up with a fake accent to talk with because he feels more comfortable putting on a completely different persona in order to interact with the world. But he has cut his father out of his life because he felt that his father had a lot to do with his discomfort growing up. But his father has divorced his mean stepmother and feels like he wants to get back into Hugo's life. That's the name of the main character. And when he gets into his life again, Hugo's uncomfortable talking to him with a fake accent, and he's uncomfortable telling his father what his real new name is. So he lets his father call him by the same name that he has. He's Mark Mertens Jr., while his father is Mark Mertens Sr., and they have a similar speaking voice. And he's American and he talks with an American accent.
I love it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that will identify with that because, there's a lot of people that try to be something that they're not just to please, right? Or that's what it's expected of
Feel
them.
like they can put themselves in public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the self that we've identified with or have become is more comfortable to us than the self that we were in the, in our traumatic past or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will see. I'm really excited. I ever since she started talking to me about it, she's like, I don't know, and I said, no, I think there's a lot of people that need to hear the message that she's going to have in this book. I think that it's going to really touch a lot of people. It's going to have a really good message. And I like it because it's unique. There's so many things, it's easy to follow a pattern, but then coming up with something that is saying a truth in a new way, that is a classic. So I'm just really excited about what you're going to be doing with this.
Thanks. I'm kind of excited to see it in print, honestly.
Get a book like that. It takes someone who has a lot of insight. And I think sometimes it's kind of like when they talk about Romeo and Juliet, you need to have someone who's really young to play them. But in order to really get across their feelings, you need to have had so many years of experience. And so it's almost impossible to play them until you're in your 30s. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a similar thing with writing. I mean, like when I look back at the things I wrote when I was a teenager, they were fun, but they lacked a lot of the insight that I have now. So even though I'm maybe writing about young people, but I can see young people from, oh, that's what I was feeling. And that's why I was feeling that way, right?
You have very mistaken ideas about what things mean when you're young.
That's true.
At least I did. Maybe some kids are very mature for their age and their brains develop more quickly. Mine took a long time. So I'm finally starting to see what things mean, how cause makes effect.
Yeah.
And people react to things, and not just how I react to things, but how other people react to things.
Yes, and that is something, they actually say that part of the brain doesn't really develop until you're in your 20s, at mid-20s, 30s, that ability to be able to see things from other people's point of view. Because we're so caught up, when we're teenagers, we're so caught up in our own perspective and our own angst.
Yeah. And if you have childhood trauma, it could have taken even longer.
Right, exactly. Yes. So I'm excited about what you're going to be doing with your book. I'm excited to be a beta reader on the
Yay! book. I'm going to send it to you like tomorrow.
I am a slow reader. So you got this book, we're going to be beta reading, editing, going through the publishing process. How can someone keep up with this? Because it sounds like a really interesting book and maybe they're already excited about it. How can they follow to keep updated?
I have a page on Facebook. I'm very old school, so I'm only doing Facebook right now. Once I start selling things and I actually have business going, maybe I will start something else. But at the moment, I am on Facebook I have a group called Inspirations for Fiction Writing. And I have a page of the same name. So either one, you can come check me out. And I try to give inspiration. I try to ask for other people's ideas. And I sometimes talk about my book. Right now on my page, I'm talking about my characters. And every so often I give little teasers what's going to happen. And it's a lot about mental health. My story has a lot to do with mental health and a lot to do with like choosing your path after you've gone through childhood trauma. Because that's identity is very difficult when you don't, when you've been treated a certain way as a young person and then you grow up doubting yourself. Mm-hmm. So
yes,
that is a big issue in my book at the moment, where Hugo and Holly, the girl he meets, are both looking for their paths in life.
Well, I'm excited to read it because I feel like it's going to be a really important message, finding our own voice, finding who we really are and being comfortable with that, right?
Yep.
And not giving up.
Not giving up, not letting other people say who we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very important. I'm really excited that you're doing this, Julie.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for coming and, well, visiting with me on Zoom here. And I look forward to reading your book.
Yeah, it was great talking with you. I always love talking about all our interesting things that we do.
Yeah, and I think that we start finding out as we talk to other writers that writers are not selfish people. I mean, it's the good writers, the ones I've met, they're not selfish. They're people that appreciate other people. And so I want to let everybody who's watching this who is a writer know that her page is a good one to follow because she is very generous with providing support and encouragement to other writers as well. So
Thank you.
look for her book.